everybody. Welcome to this session. In this session, we're going to chat about networking. And to be honest, that's a little weird to do this networking session not seeing your lovely faces. I for sure will miss them. But nonetheless, we are happy to be here. And we are happy that you are here. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to talk about networking with and without pandemic and hopefully, bring you some stuff, some information that you weren't aware of, and you leave the session feeling that you learned something. Shaban and I are very thankful to prior speakers. We've used liberally some of their slides. And without further ado, Shaban, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Rita. We are so excited to be here with you all. And I'm very excited to be presenting with Rita, who is amazing. And so I'm going to share just a few things with you about me. I am a three-time HBCU graduate, and that stands for Historically Black College and University. And so as you can see here, I have all the degrees. So computer science is my main discipline, but I do have a master's in information science, and I'm currently an assistant professor in the department that I got my Master's of Information Science degree in. So very proud of that full circle moment. My research is based in artificial intelligence and machine learning. It started off with me doing misinformation on online social networks, and now I do research with autonomous vehicles and identifying faults that happen within autonomous vehicles. And so that's a little bit about my research. I'll share a little bit more with you on the next slide. And I do have some industry experience, not as much as Rita, which is great because she's going to give you that perspective. But I did work in higher education in IT departments. So IT or information technology is a little bit different or a lot different than computer science. So, but I do have a background in that. And then I've had the privilege of working in academia at both public and private institutions. But outside of all of that, I'm Shaban and I love to travel. I love to cook and I love to read. And one thing that I'm very proud of on the screen here, that orange statue that you see, it is a real statue that will be going on display this year in Dallas, Texas, as a part of the Triple AS If Then initiative. And I'll share a little bit more about that on the next slide. As you can see here, some of the points of pride that I have are the ambassadorship. So I mentioned the Triple AS If Then ambassadorship. They selected 125 women from all of the United States to serve as STEM role models, and I'm one of them. I'm very proud of that. Last year, I got an NSF grant, which I'm super proud of as an assistant professor to do that within my first year, where I'm conducting research on autonomous vehicles and doing that fault detection collaboratively with North Carolina A&T State University. I also do research on STEM identity within adolescents. And that's important because we want to change the narrative and change the pipeline of people in computing. We want more women. We want more people from all backgrounds. And I also do work in human-computer interaction. Outside of that, you see some additional awards and things that I serve on. But most importantly, I want you to see here that I am an advocate, a daughter, friend, entrepreneur, researcher. I'm so many other things, even outside of this. And one last point of pride is I became the first woman in 2018 to get a PhD in computer science from North Carolina A&T State University. So I am so honored to be here with you all today and to be with Rita, who has so much knowledge and expertise in all of the patents. And she's going to share more about that with you next.
Thanks, Shaban. Thanks for being here, and I'm excited to learn about networking from you. So my name is Rita Uhebi. I grew up and started my career in a very, very far away place in Lebanon. I got my master's in engineering from the American University of Beirut. I then decided to work for a startup. I joined a startup for 5 years. And I've been to multiple CRAW grad cohorts, and a lot of the attendees ask me about that experience and ask me about delaying getting a PhD after a master's degree. And I often find the time to tell them, don't do this. Don't do what I did. The engineer in me who wants to optimize everything doesn't find that was an optimal path. However, it was my path and I'm proud of it. And I definitely own it. I worked for a startup for 5 years. That was really enriching, by the way. And I ended up leaving by a time when I was managing. I was the engineering director. I was managing a team of 32 engineers. To be honest with you, I hated it. And I realized that really what I enjoy doing the most is research and technical innovation. So I pursued my PhD and I spent lovely is at Columbia University pursuing my PhD with a couple of internships in California in the industry. And that helped me realize that where I want to be is the industry. I want to make things happen. I want to build things. I want to change the world physically and be able to have impact on products and industries. So I joined Intel Labs initially, which was a great place to do research, but didn't really fulfill my ambition of impacting products and businesses. And I changed gears a few years back and joined the Internet of Things group, which is a business unit in Intel. As of 6 days ago, I got a new promotion. I'm a senior principal engineer, which is one step below a vice president at Intel, and my focus is AI analytics at the edge in factories. You'll see more of that on the next slide. So, what do I do exactly at Intel? What does it mean to be someone with a PhD doing edge AI at Intel? I wanted to highlight a couple of the things that I've been very fortunate to be part of. The first one on the right, this is a public announcement that Intel and that car company with four circles did a few months back. This is a project that I led as the main technical investigator, and we transformed the way cars get manufactured. If you are looking at an Audi car, congratulations, the car you're going to buy is going to be inspected by my algo. Or if you bought a car in the last 18 months or so, and that's a big deal to ensure higher quality for welding and the way we approach it. And it has been an amazing journey where those concepts from research are becoming reality, and it excites me to no end. The other one, and I think this is because I miss part of academia of writing papers, I discovered that writing patents is like writing mini papers. And over the last decade at Intel, I have just went over 300 patents between issued and filed. And I'm proud of that innovation. It's my little guilty pleasure, always thinking about ideas, always coming up with where the technology is coming and how can we capture that and innovate in the space. Now let's dig in on the next slide with what we're trying to talk about today. You know, networking is an interesting topic. I consider myself an extrovert. I love people. And I think if we were in person, you would be by now seeing me looking at all of you and smiling and getting all excited. However, I find networking really hard. So don't be hard on yourself. Networking is tough, but it is really important because it takes a village, it takes a community to help you succeed and reach your full potential. It's not just about what you do, but it's about who you know. I got over that struggle with networking some time ago when I decided that, hey, a lot of times when people talk about networking, it sounds like schmoozing, and that's not really my style. But when I started thinking about networking is about getting to know people, all the exciting things that they are doing, and also getting to help people and seeing how they can help me. When I changed that from a networking for to schmooze to networking to build a community, it kind of gave me a new mindset and a new way that I can approach networking and not feel that it is so artificial. But I'm going to stop here, and Siobhan is going to tell you more about networking.
Thanks, Rita. I appreciate your transparency there as well because I too, although many won't believe it, am an introvert as well. And so it's not always easy. I've just learned the art of it. But as you can see here, networking is just what we're discussing. It's interacting with other people. You can exchange information or ideas or opportunities. It can encompass so many things. But what it is not is just because you're networking doesn't mean that that's a substitute not to do a good job, your work not being sound, or just socializing, or even name dropping. Right. So that's what networking is not. So make sure you know the difference. Networking should be an equal exchange of ideas and, benefits on both ends. And so the reason why we network is for so many different reasons. So, for instance, a lot of times, what's the first thing you do when you meet someone big? You Google their name. So, it's about building a brand or reputation. And that's why you want to network and network with the right people so that you can be aligned with those individuals. Also, again, it can help with sharing new opportunities. So, for instance, you better believe that I'm going to be sending Rita a LinkedIn request if I haven't already so that we can stay connected and network with one another. Also, for collaborations. A lot of times, whether you're in the industry or academia, you need collaborators for those research papers. And I'm sure that Rita has collaborated with many people on those patents that she's developed. That's so amazing, 300. I'm still in awe of hearing that, as well as learning new ideas and approaches to things, even with research. A lot of times we're learning new ways to do things. And the great thing about collaborating with other people is you get to learn something new every single time. And then again, for networking, it's the opportunity to serve. So a lot of times you can serve on program committees or be an editor somewhere or even on review committees. So a lot of times for funding agencies, you might want to serve on a panel and you can meet other potential research collaborators and network with those individuals there too. So networking can be useful to you in your career in so many ways. This list is not exhaustive. It's just a few ways that it can help your career. And so next, we're going to look at networking and we're going to look at the how, the where, and the who, which are all very important. And so on the next slide, you'll see the answer to those questions, which is everywhere. You should network everywhere. And so, as you see here with this list, school, work, conferences, workshops, wherever. But I want to say don't exclude other events that you might not think of often, like church or a family gathering. Sometimes for me, we have a family reunion. You never know who's going to be there. We always bring friends. It's about family and friends and connecting. So, even though a lot of the things that we mentioned here are in technical spaces, don't underestimate where you can meet someone. I actually met a gentleman that does AI and machine learning at the car dealership when I was getting my car serviced. He worked in AI and machine learning. We just connected there and we stayed in touch. So don't limit yourself in where, because it can be anywhere. But there are some key ways to be successful when those opportunities arise. What you want to do is begin to start making a targeted list. So, for instance, when you attend a conference like this or many conferences, there is a whole listing online where you can see who the speakers are and the attendees. So, for this conference, you could look ahead of time, or maybe some of you already did, but you could have written a list out based on who the speakers were. And you probably did a little bit of investigation to see what our research interests are. And then you know who you want to connect with. And that's a part of staying ahead is knowing who and making that list. And again, as you can see on the slide, everybody doesn't have to be from your discipline. One thing that's really wonderful in collaborating with other people are from other disciplines because there are many ways to approach a problem and to solve it. So keep that in mind. And also, you might want to broaden your network. So, as we're talking about today, I'm more of a junior person doing this talk with Rita, and she's a more senior person, but it's good to have both senior and junior people that you network with. So, as you can see here, having those established researchers in academia or industry or working with your peers. And then keep in mind, as you network or have that targeted list, it might be someone who can help you with the position. And I'm sorry to keep picking on Rita, but I'll do that because she's at Intel. You know, if you come at her at the right way, she might know of a position that she could, introduce you to someone and help you with that. And she'll talk a little bit about that later on at the latter part of the presentation. But also these different industry technologists and leaders and advisors, know who you want to be a part of your network and make that targeted list. And that's just a part of your goals. And so that's important to do because, as indicated earlier, it does take a village and you need all people in order to be successful. And so let's talk a little bit more about some networking opportunities. So I mentioned earlier, they don't have to be in the traditional places. But again, you can do it in other ways besides just networking the traditional way. You can also volunteer for different conferences or, when we were in person, you could find someone alone and start the conversation. But now with a lot of the apps that conferences are on, you can actually send people messages. So even though we don't have that traditional way that we would normally just meet up and connect with someone, you can still do it via the app and also through social media. And I'll share a little bit later some ways that I think you can connect with people that way. Also, for talks and seminars, if you're on campus or if there's a talk that you want to attend, look at the speaker's credentials ahead of time or a paper they've written and try to read it ahead of time. And so you can have specific questions. That's one way to get their attention so that you can follow up with whatever that specific ask is that you have for them. Additionally, those informal meetings with colleagues and other friends and students, also internships. Make sure you're not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to networking. So these are just some ways that you can network, but the opportunities are endless. Like I said, at the car dealership, but I've also met people at the hair salon too. I meet people everywhere. And so on the next slide, let's talk about building a plan. So one of my favorite things that I like to say is if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And I know that's not my saying, that's everybody's saying, but it's really kind of true. Even if you make a plan and you don't stick to it, the point is that you have one. And so here you can see as an example, for a conference, you can, especially those of us who are introverts, you could say, I want to meet two new people at this conference. It could be someone from industry or academia, whatever your interests are, keep that in mind. And so you can do that in various ways. So as you can see here on this slide, this is a little bit outdated because we're not in person anymore. But one thing that I've noticed is an uptick in Slack workspaces. So a lot of groups that have the similar research interests that I have went on and created Slack workspaces. And so I connect with people there. What I'm trying to say is make sure to take a look at groups that have your same research interests, like for different conferences, and see if they have a Slack workspace. And that's another way that you can do it since we can't really meet in person the way we want to now to have a meal or some type of dinner. So that's an alternate way. And again, you can always read those papers ahead of time for those different talks or for different people that you want to connect with to see how they can help you and also how you can help them, how those research interests align. And so just continue to build a plan for how you believe that networking can help you be most successful. All right, so let's talk about what you should do at a conference. I just want you to just keep in mind that very first point there, which is be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Be you, be active and confident. And I'm not going to go through all of this list because a lot of things have changed right now because we can't turn to our neighbor, look the person in the eye. But what we can do is show up and be our best selves. We can show up and be active in these sessions by typing in the chat. We can show up and be our best self by sending, a message to someone or any of those things to participate at the conference. Things have changed because we're virtual, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still have fun and make connections. And on the next slide, let's talk about what you shouldn't do. And again, what you shouldn't do is not engage. Because virtual is all that we have, we must stay engaged. And for my fellow introverts, it's a little bit easier to do that now since we're not in person. So I just want to encourage you to, overcome your fears if you have some about connecting and just go for it. All right. So now I'm going to share with you some things that I think have helped me during this pandemic. We're over a year now in this pandemic and there's still not a full end in sight. So let's talk about what's happened to me. People have dropped in my DMs or direct messages. And believe it or not, but it's actually been highly effective. So, for instance, you can do that on Instagram. A lot of people do reach out to me on Instagram. And if someone is not your friend or someone you follow, you can ignore the message or you can, add it to either your primary or general notification there and you can respond to them. Don't be afraid to do that. There is a respectful way to do it, but a lot of opportunities have come through to me through my DMs. And I'm saying that because now that we have social media more frequently, because we are virtual, that's an avenue that you should explore. But there's a way to do it. And the next thing that I want to share with you is always add some type of personalized message when you connect via social media. So for a direct message, you need to be very specific in what you want. Otherwise, it might get ignored. So you can definitely want to say something like, hey, Dr. Grady, I met you or I know about you through here. And, this is what I need. And that can be also on LinkedIn. They have something called InMail, or even when you add someone on LinkedIn, you can leave a little personal message. So that is helpful to people so they can remember where they met you from and how they should connect with you. Is very helpful. Also, be specific with your ask. I can't say that enough. A lot of times when people reach out to people, you can't just say something like, you can also tell people they're amazing, by the way. Hey, you're amazing. But that doesn't tell them how they can help you or how you can help them. So, what I'm saying is be specific, say something like, hey, Dr. Grady, I read your latest publication on XYZ. My research is also in XYZ, and I think we have potential collaborations here. By the way, I'm attaching my latest work for you to take a look at if you have time, or can we schedule a meeting? And have a website or some type of reference material. Having that just gives the other person that you're trying to network with just a key into who you are. Because as we know, or at least I know during this time, there's a lot of robocalls, spam happening, and all of those things. So if you have something that can legitimize who you are and what you're asking for, that can help too. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it off back to Rita so she can share with you more about finding sponsors.
All right. So we're going to switch gear a little bit in here and talk about a special kind of networking. And this kind of networking is about mentors and sponsors. You know, most of you right now, or all of you, are still in grad school, but soon you'll have that internship or that job, and you might be interested in how can you move forward, how can you work on exciting things. And this is where two terms you're going to encounter. One is mentor and one is sponsor. Sometimes people refer to a sponsor as an advocate, but we're going to use the word sponsor. So on the next slide, let's differentiate the difference between mentor and sponsor. I'm going to talk quite a bit about the difference between the two, but I like this, kind of divide on this slide. And I asked some time ago, I was having a rough time really understanding the difference between the two. What is a mentor? What is a sponsor? Where does one, and the other one start? And an excellent mentor of mine said, mentors talk to you about you. Sponsors talk to others about you, even when you are not in the room. Actually, especially when you are not in the room. And that is really a very big divide between the two. Mentors are trying to help you move forward. Sponsors are going to go open doors for you. So, moving to the next slide, let's get into a little bit more details. What does that mean? By the way, you should find both. Okay? We're not saying mentors are not important or sponsors are not important. Both are really important. And the way I think about it is you're going to be able to find lots and lots and lots of mentors. Typically, it's not hard to get a mentor because it's not a heavy lift on the mentor end to help you. And you'll find mentors who are willing to hang out with you and chat with you maybe once a month, others who will do it once a quarter, others depends if you have, any special need. And I always joke around when people, come talking to me about whether I can mentor them. My answer to them is absolutely I can mentor you, but I want you to know that mentorship, signing up to be your mentor, is not signing up to marry you. Meaning, feel free to drop me whenever you don't have anything specific for me, right? Don't feel that, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Rita in a month and now I see her in the hallway and it's going to be awkward. No, 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 it is not. So come and approach me when you feel that you need me for something, that I can give you advice, that you're, maybe you're stuck in a dilemma or in a situation and you want a second opinion. But if you don't talk to me for a while, trust me, no hurt feelings whatsoever. I have a pile of mentees waiting. I'll be actually thankful. But I always love people. I love helping people. And I have made it my mission at Intel a long time ago when I joined, of being the voice of technical women. And I promised myself that the more I get promoted and the more my voice is vocal, the more I'm going to expand that to become the voice of others who are not up in the ranks, and kind of extend my credibility as credit in front of their community. So mentors are really important, are really essential. I advise you to have lots and lots of mentors. I have mentors to go to them if I'm having, personal issues with certain difficult individuals. I have others that are technical mentors. I have others that are career mentors. I have others that have helped me, refine my pitch and my presentation style and so on. Mentors are excellent. Sponsors are much harder to come by, and they are much harder to find, and we're going to talk about the difference between the two. So mentors are going to hang out with you and do formal and informal discussions on, what do you need to advance. And often, whether it's a mentor or a sponsor, whenever you're scheduling a meeting with an individual, with a more senior individual, have an agenda. This is not let's go out to have coffee and I'll tell you whatever comes to mind. Have an agenda, you have specific questions, specific ask, and be ready to sometimes hear tough feedback, by the way. Okay. Mentors can help you craft your career vision, and they can suggest how do you expand your network. When a mentor gives you an advice, especially if that mentor is senior, make sure you're listening. If you don't want that advice, if you are stuck in your way and you just want to, complain about something, let them know. You're not asking for advice, you just want to vent. And that's okay. I have been also a shoulder to cry on and heard people vent, and that's totally okay. But if you ask a mentor for an advice, especially a senior person, and they know you didn't actually take it, they're going to be more hesitant mentoring you over time. So be sure that when you're asking for feedback, you're willing to take it. Now let's switch to the right hand side on sponsors. Sponsors will promote protege directly, connecting them to high profile assignments. That is really essential, right? I can be spending my time doing something that is very cool, innovative, technically exciting, but might not have high impact. Okay, not related. I am going to give you the industrial perspective, not related to a customer. It's, long term vision. And that's exciting and cool. And I've done plenty of those. But when I want to be very strategic about the next step or having a business impact or a customer impact, I want those high profile assignments. And sometimes, if you're a newcomer or if you're a woman or a minority, sometimes people don't want to take a risk on you. Sponsors will help opening some of those doors. They will help with driving your career vision, not crafting the message, but rather driving. And then, most of all, they will help connect you to their network. On the next slide, let's dig a little bit more into the mentor versus sponsor. A mentor would help you figure out how can you increase visibility. They can point you, they can say, oh, you know what? I heard some really cool project that's happening in that team. Or that's an awesome individual. You should go introduce yourself. Or I can help introduce you. But you are still having to do a lot of that work, right? You have to drive it forward. They give you the connection. I love to hike in the summer when the weather is nice. And to me, a lot of times the mentor will just show you where the trailheads are. And then it's up to you to take that route. Mentors will share some stuff that are important for you to advance that might be unwritten rules. Sponsors will champion your visibility. Sponsors will turn around, will hear about a cool project, will remember that is totally in your wheelhouse, and they'll say, "Oh, wait a minute, I think you should include Siobhan. She will do an amazing job." As a matter of fact, let me tell her right now so that you cannot back out of that. And that's a different level. Okay, they will make sure that the task that you're taking and the organization you're in see the value of you advancing. On the next slide, mentors are good. That's the big takeaway. They're very important. Sponsors are a different breed. Okay. Over my career, I probably had 25 or 30 different mentors. Some of them maybe I've talked to a few times, others are more regular. Over my career, until very recently, I had zero sponsors. Okay. Very recently, I stumbled across three people who offered to be my sponsors. Remember, I said something really important right now that I want you to internalize. I didn't ask them to be my sponsors, they offered to be my sponsors. Okay. Because it requires a lot of energy. I think it's a little cheesy and it often comes with a very polite no when you ask someone to be your sponsor. It has to be where they look at you and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sponsor you. I'm going to take you under my wing. That is really how it happens. There are a few exceptions, and I got one of my sponsors with one of those exceptions because there was a large retention effort happening at Intel for Technical Women from HR, where they looked up people who want to sponsor strong technical women at a certain grade level, and they did a one-on-one matching based on expertise, and they did actually quite a bit of work in the background that doesn't scale company wide. So we have this program. We're lucky to have this program from HR, and they matched me with a wonderful sponsor that I could have never imagined. I had heard of him. I was very scared of and intimidated knocking on his door. So they did that knocking on the door for me, and that is amazing. So keep that in mind, that sometimes maybe your connections will get you a good sponsor, or maybe the good work that you're doing out there. On the next slide, why seek a sponsor? Why would you even need a sponsor, right? You're doing amazing work. That should speak for itself. Well, in reality, it doesn't. To find a sponsor, or why would a sponsor be important? Because data that we're showing on this slide that comes from NCWIT tells us that a sponsor is a great way for better retention, for better advancement, and for better assignments and better happiness at work. So that is definitely of high value. And this is why, a program like the one I just described at Intel does exist. It is because of the value of sponsorship that has been seen. So keep that in mind. Choose your sponsor wisely. It should be someone who's very vested in your career, but someone also who's very well respected. And remember on the next slide that when considering a sponsor, you also are bringing something to the table. Big takeaways: developing relationships through networking is very, very important. And remember, you need mentors, you need sponsors, you need your village. So find your village and push yourself towards that. And you really need to take that first step in finding your community and building your community. Thank you very much for attending our session. And with that, we're going to move to the Q&A section right now.